Hello and welcome to our channel. Our channel is about like getting youngsters into old cars because people think that they're unreliable and boring, but really they're not. And I think something like this is more interesting than like our Mini outside, because there's just more personality to our old cars than something that people use all the time and they haven't been around for very long. But something like this has had history and it's just more interesting, in my opinion anyway. I choose this over a modern car any day, and that's just what our channel is about, and our passion is to get youngsters into old cars. So with our car, we've had the engine out recently because we had a knocking noise and we weren't quite sure what it was, to be honest. So we took the engine out, we've cleaned it, we put it in our house because it was quite cold outside. So we put it into our house where it's nice and warm. We replaced the rear bearing and we just did a general overlook of the engine. We cleaned it up, we checked the big ends, and they were actually quite good. And we've oiled things back up, we've cleaned things. We took the whole nose cone off and that was filled with mud. I'm not quite sure why, but it was filled with mud. So we've cleaned that out, we've smoothed the head, so that's nice and smooth now. We've painted the engine, we've got everything looking quite nice now. And so we've got a few more bits to do. We've got the sump to put back on, we've got the gauze that goes along with it. We need to connect up the starting handle and all the electrics back up to the engine, but we should be able to do that today, and hopefully we'll have the engine running today. And so our next jobs really are to put the sump and the new gasket on, which is a nice rubber sort of silicone one, I suppose, and that's meant to be quite good, as we did have an oil leak before, which was probably partially because we had an old gasket and also because we had two of the bolts missing, because before we owned the car, two of them had been snapped and I'm pretty sure they were right next to each other, so there was a big bit that was just not being held on at all. So we've got them out using a tool, and yeah, so now we'll have the whole thing being held up with a nice new gasket, and then after that we can put some oil in and some water in, and we'll turn the car over without the fuel pump connected, because when it pumps fuel into the carb it starts leaking out of the front, because I think that's just because it's a side draft carburetor, I suppose. But then once we've got oil circulated through, we'll connect the fuel up, prime it all, and hopefully the engine will start up. But what else? We've also had to clean out all the oil waste because we were having a bit of an oil pressure issue. So we cleaned them out using these little pipe cleaner things, I suppose, with a bit of degreaser in there, and that just got any remaining sludge out that was in the engine. And we had this fan on before, but it was just shiny, so we painted it red because as far as we know that's what it should be. It should be red. I don't know if that's so you can see it better or just to make it look nice, but yeah, so we've got that painted, so it should, the engine bay itself should also look like it's meant to. Oh yeah, so we've got a new spring, because before we didn't have a spring for the starting handle. I'm not sure why, but we didn't, and so we've got a spring in there now which will push it out, and it sits on a little ledge. It just means that it doesn't dangle around and swing around, I suppose. So we've got a spring in there now, and the inside of the nose cone where it's meant to sit, because the starting handle was swinging around and stuff for so long, it's worn away at the inside. So we think that it's salvageable and it should still hold the starting handle in place with the spring, but we're not quite sure.
Right then, so it's another day. We've had a couple of issues before we've got to this point. We're going to get the engine fired up. We've actually just turned it over and it sounds like it's going to fire, so we've quickly grabbed the camera. So the issues we've had, the banjo where it goes into the carburettor, the existing carburettor. The thread was always a bit on the dodgy side, and unfortunately, yeah, that gave up. So we couldn't get the fuel to seal there, so we've changed the carburettor. We actually had another carburettor. It's the one that came with the car, to be honest. It's got a much better thread in it. It's not in as good a condition, but we've given it a good clean up, and that will be fine. So what else? Yes, we're going to get it fired up. The carburettor is going to need adjusting, because the timing, the electrical timing as well, is kind of there or thereabouts. But as far as we're concerned, it's going to be close enough to get the engine fired up from when we got it all set up on the dining room table. So, so Sid's going to pop the ignition back on again, and he's going to turn it over on the handle, and fingers crossed we'll swap places and it will start up, and we'll see how quiet or otherwise the engine actually is. So right, go ahead then, Sid, let's give it a go. Right, well, that was quite easy. We certainly had the fuel ready, and it sounds quite quiet. So the engine, bit of a misfire there, yeah, okay, we'll leave it off. We've actually got no water in there, to be honest, so weren't quite expecting it to be that easy, to be completely truthful. So anyway, so yeah, and as you probably heard for yourselves there, the back of the engine was not making the rumbling noise that it was before, so I think we've cured the issue there. So the new bearing was the solution that we were looking for. So yeah, so it's all back together. So I guess the next thing is to put some water in it, make sure our new clutch linings are doing the job that they're meant to do, check for leaks, and we'll be back on the road. So happy days. And if anyone's got any thoughts on how we can repair the old carburettor, where the banjo thread goes in, can we get a helicoil in there? Does that work? Is there a better solution? Do we just bin it? I don't know. Let you guys, if anyone's got any experience with repairing one of those, let us know what your thoughts are. So all good, Sid? Happy with that?
Yeah, more than happy.
Yeah, brilliant. So more youngsters should get on Austin 7, yeah?
Oh, definitely.